They say the mind is the most powerful tool a human possesses, but most people treat it like background noise instead of the engine that drives everything. Look at any great rise in history, individual or national, and you'll find one thing at the root, an internal shift long before the external change ever appeared. The West had the spotlight, the attention, the economic dominance, and yet it got comfortable. While it was asleep in arrogance, India was awake in awareness. While others were chasing applause, India was quietly reconditioning its people with education, skill, building, hunger, and resilience. This wasn't accidental, it was mental. The groundwork was laid in the minds of individuals, families, and communities, and what's true on a national level is equally true on a personal one. You have a mental country inside you, a place where ideas are either born or buried. Most people never seize control of that internal territory. They allow outside voices to control the inner conversation. They're occupied, not liberated. But when you reclaim that space, your thoughts, your emotions, your focus, you start to rise. Not instantly, not dramatically, but definitively. People won't see it at first. They'll still treat you like the person you were. They'll laugh, doubt, roll their eyes. That's their mind, not yours. Because transformation starts in silence. You don't argue with the world. You outperform it. That's exactly what happened on the global stage. While the headlines ignored the shift, it was already in motion. And by the time they noticed the power dynamic had changed, apply that idea to your own life. You don't need people to believe in you. You don't need anyone to clap. You need to train your mind to believe what hasn't happened yet. That's what most people will never do. They'll wait for evidence before committing. But the people who change industries, economies, families, they believe first, act second, and receive third. There's a process. You don't ask the mirror to smile before you smile. You make the first move. That's mindset. That's sovereignty. And that's how revolutions begin, from within. Your mind responds to what you feed it. If you constantly replay mistakes, criticism, and fear, you will start to embody that energy. But if you begin to speak with intention, to visualize where you're going, and to act like you already have it, your subconscious begins to accept it as reality. It can't tell the difference between what's imagined and what's experienced. That's why most people relive pain. They think about the loss, the failure, the betrayal, and the body reacts as if it's happening again. So, flip it. Start practicing success mentally before it ever happens physically. That's not fake, it's foundational, because everything you want is upstream from your thoughts. The mistake the West made was assuming dominance was permanent, but success isn't a birthright, it's a practice. And the same is true in your own life. You don't get the life you want because of who you were. You get it by becoming who you're meant to be. That version of you is hidden behind your current self-image. If you keep seeing yourself as broke, unworthy, or incapable, no matter how many opportunities show up, you'll sabotage them. Not consciously, but systematically. You'll turn down good relationships. You'll procrastinate on big projects. You'll question your value, not because it's true, but because your mind is still colonized by fear, rejection, or outdated beliefs. Think about the shift that had to happen in the minds of millions before a country could rise. Now think about what would happen if you applied even 1% of that discipline, clarity, and long-term thinking to your own goals. You'd be unrecognizable in a year, not because you got lucky, but because you got focused. The battle is never external. It's not the market or your boss or your childhood. It's your interpretation. It's how you define moments. It's what you say to yourself when no one is watching. That internal dialogue is writing your future. If you want to take over your life the way India took over attention, economy, and relevance, start with the invisible. Start with your thoughts, your routines, your emotional triggers. Observe them, then rewire them. If a thought doesn't support your vision, replace it. If a routine drains your energy, delete it. If a memory keeps you stuck, reframe it. You are not a product of your past. You are a product of your patterns. And patterns can be changed. It begins with awareness and gets reinforced through repetition. That's how nations rise. That's how people rise, quietly, internally, and then all at once, the world sees something new and says, "Where did this come from?" They missed the inner war. But you didn't. You fought it daily. You won it silently. You stayed consistent. And now the shift is irreversible. No is a word that most people take personally, deeply, and permanently. It bruises their confidence, halts their dreams, and plants seeds of doubt that grow roots inside their mind. But the truth is, no isn't the end, it's information. It's a redirection. It's the universe saying, not this door, not this way. Most people hear no and walk away. The people who change the game hear no and lean in. They analyze it, learn from it, and move smarter. If you study any successful person, entrepreneur, artist, athlete, you'll find that their success was built on piles of rejection. They didn't skip the pain. They just didn't let the pain define them. They understood that rejection is not a reflection of worth. It's a reflection of timing, positioning, or sometimes protection. The West rejected the idea that India could ever become a global superpower. It saw the country through outdated lenses. Poverty, chaos, overpopulation. It didn't look closer. It didn't see the innovation, the hunger, the strategic patience. But India didn't need permission to rise. It just needed time, and the same goes for you. You don't need the world to validate your vision. You don't need the job to say yes, or the investor to believe in your idea, or the people around you to understand what drives you. Your success doesn't start with approval, it starts with direction, and every no gives you more of it. When someone tells you no, don't get emotional, get curious. Why was it a no? What did they see or fail to see? Was it a lack of trust, timing, value, or presentation? When you shift from emotional reaction to analytical observation, you stop being the victim of rejection and start becoming the architect of redirection. You gain data, insight, and resilience. You begin to see that each rejection is like a GPS recalculating your route. The destination is still there. It's just asking for a different path. Most people give up halfway to greatness because they mistake redirection for denial. They internalize no as never, but the ones who win are the ones who keep going, not recklessly, but intelligently. India didn't shout, it didn't beg, it didn't crash the party, it built its own table. Quietly, consistently, while the West was blinded by its own confidence, India was studying, building infrastructure, investing in education, in technology, in youth. The same strategy applies to your personal life. Stop knocking on closed doors out of habit or desperation. Start building your own structure. Improve your skills, upgrade your mindset, redefine your narrative. When you become undeniable, you stop needing to be accepted. The game flips. People start chasing you, not because you're loud, but because you're valuable. Every no is a spotlight. It shines on something you need to improve. Maybe your pitch wasn't strong. Maybe your energy was off. Maybe your timing wasn't aligned. Or maybe, just maybe, you were being protected from a path that would have broken you. We often forget that what we desperately want now might not serve our future self. Sometimes, no is a blessing that only reveals its wisdom in hindsight. That's why you need to train your emotions, not suppress them, but rewire them. Learn to see rejection as refinement. Every time someone closes a door on you, don't shrink. Sharpen, get better, get clearer, get bolder. You were not born to be accepted by everyone. You were born to become someone so powerful, so focused, so valuable, that the world adjusts around you. That can only happen if you stop being shaken by every no you hear. Understand this. If you're not hearing no, you're not trying enough. You're playing it safe. You're staying small. Rejection is proof that you're reaching. It's feedback that you're in the arena. And if you stay in the arena long enough, with the right strategy, mindset, and effort, you win. Not maybe, inevitably. The problem isn't the rejection. It's your reaction to it. Most people take one no and create a lifetime story around it. They stop dreaming, they stop applying, they stop speaking up. That one moment becomes a mental prison, but if you want to break through, you need to rewrite what rejection means. It's not the end of the road, it's a bend in the path. The West was shocked because it stopped paying attention. It thought it knew the outcome. That's what happens when you underestimate people, countries, or even yourself. You get blindsided by the break, through you never saw coming, but the break, through always starts with a breakdown, usually caused by a series of no's that push you to evolve. You must become the kind of person who expects rejection, not because you want it, but because you understand it's part of the process. The same way a seed must push through soil to reach the sun, your vision must push through rejection to reach reality. And the soil will be heavy, it will be dark, you'll feel buried, but you're not buried, you're planted, you're developing roots, strength, endurance, insight, and when you rise, they'll call it overnight success, but you'll know better. You'll know it was rejection that shaped your resilience. It was the no that taught you how to build a better yes. It was the detour that led you to the right destination. The world will only see the result, but you'll remember every time you heard no, and you'll know it didn't stop you, it trained you, it redirected you, it made you ready. Negative feelings are not random storms that pass through our lives without warning. They are signals, messages sent from the mind to highlight an unresolved story, a misunderstood event, or a habitual belief that has gone unquestioned for too long. Most people try to ignore these feelings or suppress them. They distract themselves with noise, with busyness, with scrolling, eating, working, complaining. But what they don't realize is that negative emotions are not the enemy. They're data, and data, when interpreted correctly, becomes direction. You don't kill negative feelings by pretending they don't exist. You kill them by understanding where they come from and why they've been allowed to live inside your mind rent-free. Your mind holds on to negative emotion when it doesn't have closure. When something painful happens, failure, rejection, betrayal, and you don't process it, it stays trapped. It becomes part of your internal narrative. It changes how you see yourself and how you expect the world to treat you. And because your mind wants to protect you from future pain, it starts predicting negative outcomes before they even happen. That's where anxiety is born. That's where hesitation lives. It's not always about what's happening now. It's about what your mind still thinks might happen again. So every time you doubt yourself, hold back, procrastinate, or sabotage a good opportunity, you're not being lazy or undisciplined. You're following an internal script that was written in a moment of pain. To change that, you have to go deeper. You have to sit with your negative feelings and ask them questions. Why do I feel this way? When did this feeling first show up in my life? Whose voice am I actually hearing when I say I'm not good enough? Most of the time, what we think is our belief is actually someone else's voice we internalized. A parent, a teacher, a boss, a critic. Over time, their opinion became our identity, but you weren't born with self-doubt. You were taught it. You weren't born feeling broken or behind. You were conditioned to think that way, and what's been learned can be unlearned. There is no progress in your life without emotional responsibility. Until you take full ownership of how you feel, you'll always blame the outside world for your inner state, and that gives away your power. You'll become dependent on things going right to feel okay. But life doesn't always go right. Plans fall apart. People disappoint you. Results take longer than expected. If your peace is based on perfection, you will never be stable. That's why the real work is emotional strength. The ability to feel a negative emotion and not run from it. To look at it head on and say, "What are you trying to teach me?" Because every emotion has a message. Anger tells you where your boundaries were crossed. Sadness tells you something mattered. Fear tells you what needs preparation. Jealousy shows you what you desire but haven't yet accepted. When you decode the message, the emotion loses its grip. You don't overcome negativity by avoiding it. You overcome it by transforming your relationship to it. That's why awareness is everything. Once you become aware of how you think and feel, you stop being controlled by it. You realize that your mind has patterns, and patterns can be reprogrammed. Most people's thoughts are on autopilot. They've thought the same disempowering things so many times that it's become a loop. And every time they think it, they feel it. And every time they feel it, they believe it. That loop is what keeps people stuck. But when you interrupt that loop with a new thought, a new interpretation, a new question, you create space. And in that space, you create freedom. The people who rise above mediocrity are not those who never feel negative. They're the ones who understand it. They use it as fuel, not as chains. They've trained their minds to extract the lesson, reframe the situation, and move forward with clarity. That's a skill, and like any skill, it can be learned. But it requires you to stop seeing your emotions as facts. Just because you feel like a failure doesn't mean you are one. Just because you feel uncertain doesn't mean the future is doomed. Emotions are temporary. They pass, but the decisions you make while in them can last forever. That's why emotional discipline is more valuable than motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline, especially over your emotional reactions, shapes your reality. Think about how many people are walking around controlled by emotions they've never examined. They lash out, shut down, quit early, compare constantly, hesitate, or pretend they're fine, and then wonder why nothing changes. You can't build a new life on a foundation of unprocessed pain. You have to clean out the internal house. You have to notice the thoughts you think every day, track them, challenge them, rewrite them. If your dominant thoughts are based on fear, shame, guilt, or regret, then you'll keep creating outcomes that match those emotions. But if you start feeding your mind with truth, with possibility, with self-respect, everything starts to shift. You weren't born to live trapped in doubt and fear. You were born to lead your life with intention and power. But to do that, you must go within. That's the part most people skip. They read books, watch videos, chase external success, but never address the emotional software running in the background, and that software is what determines the entire system. You can upgrade your habits, your goals, your routines, but if you don't upgrade your emotions, you'll keep running into the same wall, because what you feel on the inside becomes what you attract on the outside. The external world is a mirror of your internal clarity. Change the reflection, and the whole image transforms. Destiny is not a matter of luck, fate, or waiting for the stars to align. It is not something written in stone or handed down from some higher source without your involvement. Destiny is a process of engineering. It is built layer by layer, choice by choice, day by day. Just as India did not suddenly wake up one morning as a global powerhouse, your own transformation will not come from a single breakthrough moment. It comes from consistent, deliberate, and often invisible action. Most people never achieve what they're capable of, not because they don't have the potential, but because they don't have the patience. They're looking for signs, not systems. They want miracles, not habits. But the real miracle is found in what you repeatedly do when no one is watching. If you examine how nations shift, how revolutions take hold, how economies rise, it always begins with foundational work that takes years, even decades, to yield visible results. India didn't declare itself a leader. It acted like one. Slowly, intentionally, it invested in talent, in infrastructure, in global reach, in resilience. It didn't wait for validation. It didn't beg for attention. It created value, and the world eventually took notice. That exact blueprint applies to your life. Stop waiting for your big break and start becoming someone who's too prepared to ignore. The future belongs to those who understand that every small, disciplined act carries the seeds of transformation. That every ordinary day is a brick in the foundation of something extraordinary. But here's the truth. Most people sabotage their destiny in the name of temporary comfort. They choose distraction over discipline. They listen to fear over faith. They follow emotion instead of direction. Your destiny is being built with every yes and no you give. Every time you say yes to what weakens you, you step away from who you're meant to become. Every time you say no to the habits that are designed to stretch you, you delay your breakthrough. There is no mystery here. Your life is a mirror of your repeated decisions. You don't drift into greatness. You design it and then you build it brick by brick. Look at your current routine. What is it producing, not what it's supposed to produce? What is it actually delivering into your life? If your habits are inconsistent, your results will be inconsistent. If your mindset is passive, your outcomes will be weak. The way to change your destiny is not by shouting affirmations into the sky, but by aligning your behavior with the future you claim to want. If you say you want success, but your actions scream comfort, then your destiny will reflect that mismatch. The world doesn't respond to what you say, it responds to what you repeat. Engineering destiny means being intentional with time, energy, thought, and attention. The most powerful people on the planet are not the ones with the loudest voices or biggest followings. They are the ones who have built internal systems of focus and discipline. They don't wait for motivation. They don't need external praise. They operate on purpose, even when no one is looking. You have to become the kind of person who treats every hour like it matters, because it does. Every decision you make, every task you delay, every emotion you indulge, it all adds up. And eventually it shows up in your body, your bank account, your relationships, your reputation, your opportunities. Nothing is separate. It's all connected. People will look at a successful individual and say, they're lucky, or they were in the right place at the right time. What they miss is the years of quiet sacrifice that came before the visible success. They don't see the early mornings, the hard conversations, the missed parties, the lonely nights of work, because destiny doesn't come with applause. It comes with alignment. When your values, your vision, your habits, and your identity all point in the same direction, you become unstoppable. But when they are out of sync, your life becomes chaotic. You say one thing but live another. You dream big but act small, and the result is frustration, confusion, and delay. The reason most people never fulfill their potential is not lack of opportunity, it's lack of consistency. They start strong, then quit. They talk a lot but execute little. They want the prize but avoid the process. But success doesn't respond to desire, It responds to discipline. It rewards the person who shows up even when it's hard, boring, or thankless. That's how you build momentum, and momentum is what carries you through the seasons when motivation fades. It's what makes average people exceptional over time. It's what separates the dreamers from the doers. Your destiny is waiting on the other side of your excuses. It doesn't care how hard your past was. It doesn't care what your parents didn't give you, what society told you, or what failures you've had. It only responds to your next decision. The question is, are you building your future, or are you repeating your past? Every time you get up with purpose, every time you stay disciplined when no one's checking, every time you push forward when quitting would be easier, you are shaping a new path. One where you're no longer a victim of circumstance, but a creator of circumstance. That's what it means to engineer destiny, not by chance, but by choice, not with noise, but with action, not in a single leap, but in thousands of focused steps. Power is not seized through chaos, it is accumulated through clarity. For too long, the world was fixated on noise, dominance, and force, believing that the loudest voice or the biggest budget was what moved mountains. But the rise of India disproved that completely. It wasn't about explosions or declarations. It was about execution, consistency, and vision. While the West drowned in distractions, chasing trends and short-term applause, India was focused on infrastructure, innovation, human capital, and long-term positioning. And that quiet, relentless focus rewrote the global script. The same is true for individuals. In a world full of distraction, the one who can sustain focus becomes the most powerful person in the room, because focus is rare, focus is currency, and where focus goes, power flows. Most people don't lose because they're incapable. They lose because they're scattered. Their attention is fractured, pulled in every direction, reacting to everything, committed to nothing. They try to be everything to everyone and end up being nothing to themselves. The reason you don't feel powerful is not because you don't have talent. It's because you're leaking energy through constant redirection. Every time you stop what you're doing to check a message, scroll mindlessly, or change direction because of someone else's opinion, you lose a piece of your momentum. And momentum is how real power is built. Focus compounds. Each hour of undivided attention stacks on top of the last one until results become exponential. But if you start and stop and shift and doubt, you never build enough pressure to create a breakthrough. India didn't compete by trying to outshout the West. It didn't chase validation. It locked into a vision of what was possible and started executing behind the scenes. No headlines, no noise, just consistent action. The same principle applies to personal evolution. You don't need to announce your goals or convince the world of your worth. You need to commit so deeply to your path that the world has no choice but to notice. People respect results. Results are a byproduct of obsession, of quiet, relentless, disciplined focus. The more you focus, the more you see, and the more you see, the faster you move. Discipline is the sidekick of focus. You can't have one without the other. Focus gives you direction, discipline keeps you on track. Most people drift through life reacting to what's urgent, never making time for what's important. They don't live their day, they survive it. They confuse busyness with progress and effort with impact. But movement doesn't mean advancement. Only focused, intentional effort creates real progress. Just like a laser cuts through steel while a flashlight barely lights a room, your mind becomes a weapon when it's concentrated. The reason so few people feel powerful is because their energy is diluted. They're thinking about 10 things at once, trying to please people who don't even matter, worrying about outcomes they can't control. You can't be powerful if your mind is hijacked by every opinion, every doubt, every shiny distraction. You reclaim your power the moment you reclaim your attention, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. When you can go through a day aligned with one intention, you become dangerous, not in a loud or arrogant way, but in a way that bends the environment toward your presence. Because most people are reacting, when you show up with focus, you interrupt the pattern. There is no force more underestimated than sustained focus. It's not dramatic, it's not glamorous, but it rewrites destinies. You don't need to chase success. You need to become a magnet for it, and magnets don't chase, they attract. They attract by their nature, their vibration, their consistency. When your internal world becomes ordered, your external world follows. This is why the person with clarity always beats the one with confusion, no matter how talented the latter is. You could be the most gifted person in the room, but if your mind is divided, you'll always be outrun by the one who simply kept showing up, doing the work, and staying in their lane. Look around at those who are thriving. You'll find a common thread, not noise, not chaos, not multitasking, but focused commitment. Whether it's a nation, a leader, or an individual, the formula doesn't change. Lock in, go deep, eliminate what doesn't matter. Build without needing permission, act without broadcasting every move. Power doesn't demand attention, it creates it. When you're focused, you don't need to talk. Your results speak, your energy shifts. People sense it. Opportunities respond to it. That's what happened on the world stage. And it's what can happen in your life. Not through pressure, but through alignment. Not through fear, but through awareness. Focus gives you an unfair advantage in a world addicted to distraction. You can't control everything, but you can control where your attention goes, and that is everything. Your thoughts are a vote for the future you want. Your focus is the signal that directs your energy. The tighter your focus, the clearer your signal. The clearer your signal, the faster the results. You don't have to be everywhere. You don't have to do everything. You just need to do the right things with the right intention, long enough for them to compound. Because when you become the person who can hold focus under pressure, who doesn't fold in chaos, who doesn't break when no one is clapping, that's when power shifts. Not just in the world, but inside you.